The impossible ship. Commander Elise Reeves stood before the Earth Defense Council, her shoulders squared despite the weight of skepticism bearing down on her. The hologram projector hummed softly as it displayed her creation, a ship unlike any the United Earth Fleet had ever commissioned. "This," she announced with quiet confidence, "is the UEF Spectre." The ship rotating above the projection table looked wrong to everyone in the room. Its hull was asymmetrical, covered with what appeared to be random protrusions and indentations. The propulsion system was nearly invisible, and conventional weapons systems seemed conspicuously absent. The design violated every principle of military spacecraft architecture that had been established over the last century. Admiral Harrington leaned forward, not bothering to hide the contempt in his voice. "Commander Reeves, is this some kind of joke? This looks like something my 10-year-old nephew would draw." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Reeves had expected this reaction, but it stung nonetheless. 5 years of her life had gone into this design. 5 years of mathematical proofs, quantum theories, and engineering innovations that most of these career officers couldn't begin to comprehend. "With respect, Admiral, the Spectre represents a completely new approach to interstellar warfare," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "Conventional thinking won't defeat the Shroud." The mention of humanity's newest enemy silenced the room momentarily. The Shroud had appeared 3 years ago, attacking remote colonies without warning. Their ships seemed to materialize from nowhere, strike with devastating force, and vanish before defenses could respond. Conventional sensors couldn't track them. Conventional weapons couldn't hit them. "You claim this contraption can detect and engage Shroud vessels?" General Matthews asked, his thick eyebrows drawn together skeptically. "It can do more than that, sir. The Spectre can match their phase-shifting technology." Another wave of disbelieving murmurs swept through the room. Phase shifting was considered theoretical at best, impossible at worst. "Commander," Admiral Harrington sighed, "we've reviewed your technical specifications. Your theories about quantum positioning and dimensional phasing are creative but untested. The UEF cannot divert critical resources to experimental projects during an active conflict. The simulations," Reeves began, "are just that. Simulations," Harrington cut her off. "This council grants limited funding to continue your research, but full construction of the Spectre is denied. Conventional fleet development will remain our priority." Reeves felt her dream collapsing. Limited funding meant her project would languish in development hell while the military built more of the same ships that were proving useless against the Shroud. "Admiral, the Shroud are winning because they operate on principles we refuse to accept," she argued, her composure beginning to crack. "We need to change our approach before." "That's enough, Commander." Harrington stood, signaling the end of the hearing. "Our decision is final." As the council members filed out, only Captain Lynn, Reeves' mentor from the academy, approached her. "They'll understand eventually, Elise," he said quietly. "But you may need to prove it works first." "How am I supposed to do that with limited funding?" she asked bitterly, shutting down the hologram. Lynn smiled faintly. "Who said anything about official channels? I still have some connections at the Ganymede shipyards. They owe me a few favors." For the first time that day, Reeves felt a glimmer of hope. 18 months later, Commander Reeves stood in the dimly lit hangar of a remote asteroid base, gazing up at her creation. Despite the budget cuts, the ridicule, and the bureaucratic roadblocks, the Spectre existed. Not officially, of course. On paper, it was listed as a research platform, testing various theoretical propulsion systems. In reality, it was humanity's most advanced warship, built in secret by a team of engineers and scientists who believed in Reeves' vision. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, her chief engineer, approached with a tablet in hand. "Final systems check is complete, Commander. She's ready." Reeves nodded, studying the unconventional lines of her ship. What the Defense Council had mocked as awkward protrusions and senseless asymmetry were in fact precisely calculated quantum anchors, points where the ship could maintain stability while partially shifting between dimensional states. "What's the status on our crew?" she asked. "All 20 volunteers are aboard. They've completed the simulator training, though they're still a bit skeptical about what this ship can actually do. They'll understand once they see it in action," Reeves replied. She'd been selective in her recruitment, choosing officers with open minds and the courage to try something new. Most were younger officers whose careers had stalled or who had been passed over for promotion due to unconventional thinking. Exactly the kind of people she needed. Her comm unit chimed with an incoming priority message. It was Captain Lin, now serving as tactical officer on Jupiter Station. "Elise." Lin's face appeared, grim and tired. "The shroud hit Proxima Centauri colony 6 hours ago. It's bad, worse than anything we've seen. The defense fleet is gone, and we've lost contact with the surface. Over 20,000 colonists." Reeves felt her stomach tighten. Any response from Fleet Command? "They're scrambling everything they have, but you know as well as I do that conventional ships won't make a difference. The shroud will be gone before our forces arrive." Lin paused. "There's more. Long-range sensors have detected unusual activity near New Horizon. Intelligence thinks it might be the next target." New Horizon. Humanity's most ambitious colony yet, with over 100,000 inhabitants. How long until the fleet can reach New Horizon? 3 days, minimum. Reeves looked up at the Spectre, then back to Lin. "We can be there in 12 hours. Lin's eyes widened. "Elise, the Spectre isn't authorized for." "I'm not asking for authorization, Marcus. I'm telling you what we're going to do." After a long moment, Lin nodded. "I'll do what I can to clear your departure through official channels. Just be careful. If you're right about the Spectre, you might be humanity's only real chance against the Shroud." As the communication ended, Reeves turned to Jackson. "Prepare for immediate departure. We're heading to New Horizon." 8 hours later, the Spectre hurtled through space at speeds that conventional physics said were impossible. In the ship's command center, a circular room unlike the traditional bridge layout of UEF vessels, Commander Reeves addressed her crew. "I know many of you joined this project because your careers had hit dead ends," she began, looking at each face in turn. "You've been told the Spectre is experimental, untested, possibly even a waste of resources. What you haven't been told is exactly what makes this ship different." She activated the main display, showing a diagram of the Spectre alongside the distinctive silhouette of a shroud vessel. "For 3 years, we've been fighting an enemy that seems to break the rules of physics. Their ships appear and disappear at will. Our weapons pass through them, as if they're not fully there. That's because they're not. At least, not in our dimension." The crew exchanged nervous glances. This was venturing beyond standard military briefings into theoretical physics. The Shroud use what we call phase-shifting technology. They can partially exist between dimensions, making them nearly impossible to detect or engage with conventional means. Reeves paused. "The Spectre can do the same thing, but better." Lieutenant Park, the weapons officer, frowned. "Commander, with respect, if this technology is real, why hasn't the UEF deployed it fleet-wide?" "Because most of the military establishment doesn't believe it's possible," Reeves answered honestly. "They mocked this ship, called it a fantasy. That's why we're here, unofficially, racing to New Horizon, while the official response is still days away." She looked around the room again, seeing doubt mixed with curiosity on most faces. "I'm not asking you to take this on faith. In approximately 4 hours, I'll activate the Spectre's phase-shifting systems. You'll see for yourselves what this ship can do." As the briefing concluded, Lieutenant Commander Jackson approached Reeves privately. "They're still skeptical," he noted. "So were you once," she reminded him with a small smile. "Until I saw the math," he acknowledged. "And then the prototype tests. But it's a lot to accept, especially for career military who've been trained to think in conventional terms. They'll understand soon enough." Reeves checked the navigation display. We're making good time. How are the phase drivers holding up? Operating within parameters, though I'm keeping an eye on the quantum stabilizers. This is the longest continuous run we've attempted. Before she could respond, a priority alert sounded. Lieutenant Chen at Communications turned to them, her face pale. "Commander, we're receiving distress signals from New Horizon. The Shroud are already there." Reeves felt her heart sink. They were still hours away, even at their enhanced speed. How many ships? At least 15 detected so far, including what appears to be a command vessel nearly twice the size of anything we've encountered before. The bridge fell silent. 15 Shroud ships was an unprecedented force. In previous attacks, they'd never deployed more than 5. "Commander," Jackson said quietly, "we're one experimental ship with a crew of 20. What exactly do you plan to do against 15 Shroud vessels?" Reeves met his gaze steadily. Exactly what the Spectre was designed to do. Show them that humanity can change the rules too. She turned to the helm officer. "Lieutenant Howard, push the phase drives to maximum. We need to get there faster. That exceeds safety protocols," Jackson warned. "Those protocols were conservative estimates," Reeves countered. "The math says they'll hold." Howard looked between them, then nodded. "Increasing to maximum output, Commander." As the Spectre accelerated beyond what any human ship had achieved before, Reeves gripped the edge of the command console. Throughout her career, she had fought against the military's rigid thinking, their inability to adapt to new threats. Now she was about to stake not just her reputation, but the lives of her crew and potentially thousands of colonists on her conviction that she was right. 4 hours to New Horizon. 4 hours until they would either prove the Defense Council catastrophically wrong or die trying. Changing the rules. The Spectre dropped out of its accelerated state at the edge of the New Horizon system. The main view screen showed a scene of chaos. 15 Shroud vessels, their hulls seemingly constructed of constantly shifting darkness, surrounded the colony. 3 UEF defense ships floated dead in space, torn apart by weapons humanity barely understood. Status of the colony, Commander Reeves demanded. Lieutenant Chen monitored the incoming signals. "Their defensive shield is holding, but it's weakening. Ground communications report multiple breaches at the southern quadrant. The Shroud have landed forces." Reeves had expected this. The pattern was consistent with previous attacks. Disable orbital defenses, land ground forces, harvest resources, and people. No one knew why the Shroud took human captives, but the few survivors of previous attacks reported seeing colonists being loaded onto their ships. "The colony shield will fail within 20 minutes at current rates," Jackson reported, analyzing the energy readings. "Then we don't have much time." Reeves straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. "All hands, prepare for phase transition. Lieutenant Park, ready weapons systems. Lieutenant Howard, plot an approach vector that will place us between the colony and the Shroud command ship." As the crew rushed to comply, many exchanged nervous glances. Despite months of training, none had actually experienced what was about to happen. "Commander," Jackson said quietly, "most of the crew has never undergone phase transition outside of simulations. It can be disorienting." "They'll adapt," Reeves replied, then addressed the ship-wide comm. "All personnel, secure yourselves at your stations. What you're about to experience will challenge your perception of reality. Focus on your training. Trust the ship." She nodded to Jackson, who entered a complex sequence into his console. Phase drivers engaging in 3, 2, 1. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, subtly at first, but with increasing intensity, the very fabric of reality around them began to change. The walls of the bridge appeared to breathe, expanding and contracting like lungs. Colors shifted unpredictably. Sound arrived before its source, or lingered long after it should have faded. Several crew members gripped their stations, fighting waves of nausea as their brains struggled to process sensory input that defied conventional physics. One young ensign at the engineering station began hyperventilating until the medical officer administered a sedative. "Stay focused," Reeves commanded, her voice seeming to come from everywhere at once. Despite having experienced this before, even she felt the disorientation. "Your perceptions will stabilize as your brain adapts." Gradually, the most extreme effects subsided, though reality continued to behave strangely. Objects occasionally phased partially through solid surfaces. Light bent around corners. Gravity fluctuated subtly throughout the ship. "Phase transition complete," Jackson announced. "We're now operating at a 42% dimensional offset." "Are we invisible to conventional sensors?" Reeves asked. "Yes, Commander. We exist partially outside normal spacetime. To conventional sensors, we're no more than a momentary ghost image, if that." Reeves allowed herself a small smile. "Lieutenant Howard, proceed to the designated coordinates." The Spectre moved through the battlefield like a phantom, completely undetected by the shroud vessels. As they approached the massive command ship, Reeves studied its configuration. Unlike the smaller attack craft, the command vessel pulsed with energy that seemed to ripple across its surface like liquid darkness. "Lieutenant Park, analysis of the command ship's phase state." Park consulted his readings. "They're operating at approximately 27% dimensional offset, enough to be partially intangible to conventional weapons, but still visible to standard sensors." "Perfect." Reeves nodded. "That confirms our theories. They can phase shift, but not as completely as we can." The weapons officer looked confused. "Commander, if we're at a greater phase offset than they are, how can we engage them?" "Our weapons would pass through them, just like conventional weapons pass through their ships." "That's where the Spectre's true brilliance comes in," Reeves explained. "Lieutenant Jackson, prepare the phase-matched targeting system." Jackson activated a complex array of controls. Phase matching is online. The system can now synchronize our weapon's dimensional state with the exact phase of any target we select. Understanding dawned on the weapons officer's face. "We can hit them because we're firing from the same dimensional state they're hiding in." "Exactly," Reeves confirmed. "For the first time, we're fighting on their terms." As the Spectre took position between the colony and the Shroud command ship, Reeves opened a channel to the colony's defense center. "New Horizon Defense. This is Commander Elise Reeves of the UEF Spectre. We're moving to engage the Shroud forces. Focus your remaining defenses on the southern breach." The response was immediate and confused. "Commander, our sensors don't show any UEF ships in the vicinity. If this is some kind of psychological warfare, you can't see us because we're operating in a phased state, similar to the Shroud. Just hold your position and be ready when the shield opens briefly for our attack run." Before the colony could respond further, one of the smaller Shroud vessels changed course, moving to intercept a supply ship attempting to flee the system. "They haven't detected us yet," Jackson observed. "We have the element of surprise." Reeves nodded. "Target the interceptor. Minimum power, precise targeting. Let's test our systems before engaging the command ship." Park locked onto the Shroud interceptor. Target acquired. Phase match at 27.3%. Weapons hot. Fire. A beam of energy that seemed to flicker in and out of visibility shot from the Spectre's main weapon port. It struck the Shroud vessel with devastating precision. Unlike conventional weapons that had proven nearly useless against the Shroud, the phase-matched beam tore through the alien ship's hull as if it were paper. The vessel shuddered, then exploded in a burst of energy that rippled through multiple dimensional states. For a moment, the bridge was silent. "Direct hit," Park finally reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "Target destroyed." The crew exchanged looks of astonishment. For 3 years, humanity had barely been able to damage Shroud vessels, let alone destroy one with a single shot. "They've noticed," Chen reported as the remaining Shroud ships broke off their attack on the colony and began moving in seemingly random patterns. "Their communication frequencies are spiking. I think they're confused." "They should be," Reeves said. They've never encountered an enemy that could match their technology. She turned to Howard. Evasive maneuvers. Don't maintain a predictable course. The Spectre danced through space, its unusual design finally revealing its purpose. The asymmetrical hull that had been mocked by the Defense Council allowed the ship to change its phase state differently across its structure, making it nearly impossible to target even for the Shroud. 3 Shroud vessels converging on our last known position, Park warned. Target the nearest and fire, Reeves ordered. Another phase-matched beam lanced out, striking one of the approaching vessels. Unlike the first, this one didn't immediately explode. Instead, it began to destabilize, parts of its hull phasing in and out of normal space as its systems failed. They're adapting, Jackson observed, adjusting their phase state to try to compensate. As expected, Reeves replied, recalibrate and fire again. The second shot finished what the first had started, and the alien ship disintegrated. The remaining 2 vessels broke off their approach, retreating toward the command ship. They're calling for help. Chen interpreted from the alien communications. I think they're scared. A notification chimed on Jackson's console. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from UEF Command. They've been monitoring the situation through New Horizons long-range comms. Reeves had expected this. Put it through. Admiral Harrington's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mixture of confusion and grudging respect. Commander Reeves, I see your research project has taken an unauthorized combat role. With respect, Admiral, we're the only ship capable of engaging the Shroud effectively, she replied, maintaining her composure despite the lingering bitterness from their last encounter. As you can see from New Horizons tensor data, the Spectre's phase-shifting technology works exactly as I claimed it would. Before Harrington could respond, Park shouted, Commander, the Shroud command ship is powering up its main weapon array. I need to focus on the battle, Admiral, Reeves said quickly. I suggest you observe and prepare to reorient UEF shipbuilding priorities. She cut the transmission before he could object. The massive Shroud command vessel was indeed preparing to fire, but not at the colony. Somehow, despite the Spectre's phase shifting, the alien flagship had managed to approximate their position. They're using wide dispersal energy pulses, Jackson reported. They can't target us precisely, but they're hoping to hit us with a broad enough attack. Reeves considered their options quickly. How close do we need to be for a guaranteed critical hit on their command core? Jackson looked alarmed. Within 5 kilometers, but at that range, we'd be caught in the energy backwash if their core destabilizes. Plot the approach, Reeves ordered Howard. Lieutenant Park, prepare all weapons to fire simultaneously at the command core once we're in position. Commander, Jackson objected. The Spectre wasn't designed for that kind of power output all at once. The phase drivers could destabilize. We'll stabilize them manually if necessary, Reeves countered. If that command ship escapes, they'll adapt to our technology. The next time we face them, our advantage will be gone. The crew fell silent, recognizing the gravity of the situation. Finally, Howard nodded. Approach vector plotted. ETA to optimal firing position. 47 seconds. As the Spectre accelerated toward the massive alien flagship, Reeves opened the ship-wide comm again. All hands, this is the commander. We're moving to engage the Shroud command vessel at close range. Engineering teams, prepare for potential phase driver instability. This is what the Spectre was built for, what you were chosen for. Let's finish this. The ship hurtled toward its target, dodging the increasingly desperate energy pulses. The Shroud vessel fired into empty space. At such close range, the alien ship loomed impossibly large, its surface rippling with dark energy. In position, Howard announced. All weapons locked on their command core, Park confirmed. Phase match at 28.1%. They've adjusted slightly. Compensate and fire everything, Reeves ordered. Every weapon on the Spectre discharged simultaneously, each beam calibrated to match the exact dimensional phase of its target. The combined energy struck the shroud vessel's core with devastating precision. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality itself seemed to tear around the alien ship. Their core is destabilizing across multiple dimensional states. Jackson shouted over the sudden alarms blaring throughout the bridge. We need to get clear, now. Maximum reverse thrust, Reeves commanded. The Spectre pulled away as the Shroud command ship began to collapse in on itself. The dimensional energies contained within its core, now released in an uncontrolled cascade, created a phenomenon never before witnessed by human eyes, a cross-dimensional implosion that briefly connected multiple planes of existence. Phase drivers overheating, Jackson reported, his fingers flying across his console to stabilize the systems. Dimensional anchors losing cohesion. The ship shuddered violently as space itself warped around them. Reeves gripped her command chair, watching as the massive alien vessel contracted to a single point of impossible darkness, then exploded outward in a wave of energy that transcended normal space. Brace for impact, she shouted. The wave hit the Spectre like a physical force, sending it tumbling through space. Systems flickered, gravity failed, and for several terrifying seconds, the crew experienced what it felt like to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously without the ship's protective field. Then, gradually, the systems stabilized. The ship's emergency protocols engaged, forcing a return to normal dimensional space. The disorienting sensory effects faded, replaced by the familiar solid reality of conventional physics. Status report, Reeves demanded, pulling herself back into her chair as gravity reasserted itself. Phase drivers offline, Jackson reported. We've returned to normal space. Hull integrity at 82%. Minor injuries reported on decks 2 and 3, but no casualties. The shroud vessels? Reeves asked. Park checked his readings, then looked up in amazement. Gone, Commander. All of them. The dimensional cascade from the command ship appears to have destabilized their phase state. They've either been destroyed or forced back to wherever they came from. Chen was monitoring colony communications. New Horizon reports the Shroud ground forces have collapsed. They just fell apart when the command ship was destroyed. A collective exhale seemed to pass through the bridge crew. They had done it, accomplished what the entire UEF fleet had failed to do for 3 years. They had not only fought the Shroud on equal terms, but defeated them decisively. The communication system chimed again. This time, it was not just Admiral Harrington, but the entire Earth Defense Council. Commander Reeves, the Admiral began, his earlier skepticism notably absent. On behalf of the Council, I extend our congratulations and gratitude. Your unconventional approach has achieved what our conventional forces could not. Reeves allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before responding. Thank you, Admiral. The Spectre has proven that adapting to new threats requires new thinking. I assume the Council will now reconsider the allocation of resources for additional phase-shifting vessels. The Admiral's expression tightened briefly, then relaxed into something approaching respect. Yes, Commander. The Council has unanimously approved full funding for a fleet of ships based on the Spectre's design, under your supervision. It seems we owe you an apology for our short-sightedness. As the communication ended, Reeves looked around at her crew, the misfits and overlooked officers who had believed in her vision when no one else would. They had changed the course of the war, perhaps saved humanity itself, with a ship that had been mocked and dismissed by the military establishment. Set course for Earth, she ordered Lieutenant Howard. Let's go show them exactly how impossible ships win wars. As the Spectre limped back toward Earth, its unconventional design no longer a subject of ridicule, but a symbol of humanity's innovative spirit, Commander Elise Reeves allowed herself a small smile. The ship that shouldn't have worked, the theory that couldn't be right, the captain who wouldn't give up. Together, they had proven that humanity's greatest strength was not in following established rules, but in changing them when necessary. The Shroud had learned this lesson too late. Any future enemies would face a humanity now armed with the knowledge that the impossible was merely a problem waiting for the right solution.